It's a brand new day, great day to work on some gaskets. We have 21 of them to do today. And it's all for this car right here. Subaru 360. We got one entire sheet of gaskets all ready to go. I'm just gonna get these ready to be popped out. I changed the setting to a custom setting specifically for these gaskets, but I am just running one cut instead of two to see if I can save a little bit of the wear and tear on the D-point knife. So it looks like that single pass isn't going to be quite enough. Flip this around and see if we can make it work a little bit better. As you can see here, it didn't actually cut all the way through. It is a pretty thick gasket material. What I'm going to do is switch over to the other grip mat. You can see is that it's not even cutting into this, so we're going to see if we can get a little bit more pressure on it with the better grip mat. The material seems like it updated with the machine. I'll just go ahead and write down the information that I have for next time. I have switched it up to make sure that it's cutting twice instead of just once. Everything is nice and seated in there. If it doesn't work, then I'll switch it up to 3, or I can go up to 5 times cutting if I have to, but I shouldn't need to. All right, let's try to peel this off cleanly. It looks like it still might need one more cut. It looks like for some reason the machine is just a little bit lopsided. So here it is. You can see that it's almost there, just has a little bit more to go. So I'm gonna see if I can just change it down to 1 times, possibly with more pressure, and see if that gets it done in one try. That was it. So I switched it to 1 cut with a little bit more pressure, and everything pops out pretty much perfectly. So I think that's the setting I'm going to go with. And there's just a tiny bit of scoring in here, but these mats are replaceable. That's going to happen over time, so that's probably the right amount of pressure. Let's get back to what we were actually trying to do. Here you go. So there is the gasket. Just nice 1 cut, just a little bit more pressure on that. The machine only lets you go to a certain amount of pressure, but when you do go past the settings and actually get to setting up the final cut, you can adjust it and add more pressure. So I switched it from 1 times all the way, or from 3 times down to 1 time cut, and then adjusted the pressure once I was ready to cut. Well, it says that it had a critical error and I gotta restart the Cricut. Let's see if it'll just push everything out. And I was having a little bit of trouble with that, so I switched it back to the 2 times cutting, and I was already gonna have to buy blades, but I'll just buy as many as I need to. It's just very thick gasket material. See how it goes. So what I would advise on this is putting a little bit of masking tape along the edges, also rolling out your material earlier and making sure that there's enough pressure on it. Now that I've done these tests, I could definitely expand it to the full 12 by 24, but at this moment I only have to make so many of them to fill an order. Just make sure that your machine is updated and that you test everything ahead of time. The other thing was setting up your own material. When I put it on the custom material earlier, after a firmware update, it showed that we didn't actually have the custom material in there. We fixed that, we set it up for this thickness of gasket material, and then we made sure to do the double cut just to be sure. I looked at some of the other materials in the list. It was pretty common to just do a double cut, set it at the highest pressure. But once we got that all set up over here, I'll show you what we got. So I have my gasket material here that I set up. I switched that over to 2 times, make sure it's the deep point and not the fine point blade. Set it all the way up to the max. Save it, and then click out of the screen over here. Make sure you choose more pressure so that I can get beyond that 350 limit. If you're ready, you can just load it again. So I'm gonna go on to the next gaskets and we'll go from there. So this is what we ended up with. 72 of them fit on one sheet. 8 by 9 is what I was able to make work. If I am able to do a bigger sheet, just means that I can do more at once. But right here, we have 72 of them all ready to go. There it is, all packaged up. We got 72 of these. Originally, I thought I could only get 70 on the build plate, but I'll go ahead and update that. So we're gonna get 2 extra in the package, and it's all for this car right here. Subaru 360. Here's my updated setup. Just threw a little bit of tape all along the edges, just on the very edge, if you can see that little bit of a highlight. So we'll see if that works a little bit better for the really tightly spaced ones. And then if I have any that don't need to go as close to the edges, then I'll be able to throw a little bit more pressure on it. Show you guys a nice clean pull, and then I'm gonna get all of these popped off. Pop these off the build plate, and then I'm gonna get them all the little bits scraped off. All right, 20 gaskets all ready to go. There it is, tiny little gasket. I'm going to show you it on the engine now. There's the gasket. Let's check it out. So this gasket here is on top of the transmission, and there is a spring in there. I've been working on making these gaskets for a little while now. They aren't too hard, but other things get in the way. But it did take a lot of trial and error to get all of these to fit just perfectly. My hope is that these fit better than the OEMs did originally. And this is the gasket that I had made previously. Make sure that you don't let this spring pop out on you. And we are gonna try out the brand new test gasket. And there you go. Took a lot of trial and error to make sure that that fit just perfect. Set these back on and make sure that they thread in. I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to put a washer on this as well. Both of the engines that I've worked on don't actually have the flat washer on it. They just have the brush washer or spring washer. And we're gonna do this evenly so that that spring sits down really nice. I'm having no resistance. There you go, guys. One gasket down, and I'll show you the rest later. Here's my test, trying to see if I can fit just a few more on one build plate. It's really gonna come down to these next couple cuts here when it does the outline. See if we can do a nice cinematic shot of pulling this off. There it is. Here's the oil pump. It's located on the right side of the engine if you're looking at the car from the rear. It is just below the distributor and the alternator and belt. We're going to be using a 14 millimeter here on the line, 14 millimeter there. All right, that took a while, but we got that bolt off. Let's go ahead and undo this one as well. And there it is. Got the oil pump off here. You're not gonna have one that's quite as dry as this. I've been working on this engine for a while, so everything's been cleaned up, and the gasket has already been tested on it. So what we're doing today is just double checking that the file I have on my computer is the most current file that we're gonna be sending off. This gasket fits nice and tight and snug against everything so that there's no chance that dirt and debris can squeeze between anything. So let's test this out on the computer and show you what we're working with. One thing that you can see is that it is a little bit offset on the actual center hole there, and you can see that if we're taking a look at the oil pump as well. I just want to make a quick note on the oil pump as you're putting it back together. If it does not push directly up, don't force it. What you're gonna have to do is actually come up here, and the distributor is what's getting stuck on it. If you're doing your oil pump and you're going to tighten everything down, make sure that you line up the distributor. So what you can do is up here, just turn and make sure that that lines up. And then once it does, you won't have any problems tightening it down.